What's up, you guys? Welcome to Boss Level 8. We watched Aquaman. Yes, everyone's super excited to see Aquaman. So excited. Well, not everybody, but most people. A lot of people don't have faith in DC, and we're gonna read a review from a guy who definitely was not happy with this movie. We're gonna take a look at the review and just nitpick everything that she has to say. That's how we do things here. We don't make reviews, we review these crappy reviews. If it's your first time here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell right next to it so you can get notified every single time we have a new video. Now let's take a look at this review of Aquaman. At this point, putting aside exceptions such as Wonder Woman and Black Panther, I hope she fixes the fact that they're not the same company. It might seem futile to still hold out hope for a superhero film that feels like a genuine artistic creation. Okay, good. So you know that they're from different franchises. Setting aside two things that happened very recently that did exactly what I'm about to say. What? Why are we setting aside the two things that literally did what you're saying? It doesn't prove your point if you put those things to the side. But the way DC's Aquaman overextends itself in all directions feels just as dispiriting as self-evidently safer entries in the ever-expanding canon of superhero sequels and remakes. See, the thing is, it's only safer in respect to representation. That's the only way it was really safer. They did a movie that pretty much took place underwater. That was incredibly challenging, and honestly, whether you thought it worked or you thought it didn't work, they tried to do something crazily ambitious. In filmmaking, yes, they didn't make a primarily black cast, or they didn't, focus on a female hero, which was obviously groundbreaking and amazing. They did a different kind of daring. It's not safe, though. They tried something really difficult. It just wasn't social justice difficult. The film's obvious and faintly desperate attempts to please everyone weighs down its genuinely fun aspects, and even makes those look engineered themselves. They were trying to please everyone? I didn't really feel like... What do you mean? What is intentional and what isn't? Could anything in this multi-million-dollar machine have escaped the scrutiny of focus groups and the careful calibration of fun? The careful calibration of fun. You sound like my mom on vacation. It's like, well, I'm gonna be doing this with your sister-in-law. Why don't you and your brother and your father go do this? I'm like, we didn't want to do that, but it's on the list. It's on the itinerary. If you don't do it now, then when are you gonna do it? We just might not do it. You have to. It's on the list. Torn between a serious coming-of-age adventure, a rompy buddy comedy, and a violent epic, the film decides to be all of these things, but messily, and one at a time. It's messy, but one at a time. That's actually kind of hard to do, because generally messy means a whole bunch of stuff is mashed and together. It's kind of hard to make it messy and one at a time. It's like we just did this here, and this here, but somehow it's just all jumbled in a mess. That's like a NASCAR race, except each car drives into a wall one at a time. Also, there's no turns, so no chance for them smashing into each other. It's just gonna go straight, and then one. Because if they turn, they'd accidentally hit into each other. Someone's gonna hit someone if they turn. A battle scene seems inspired by Lord of the Rings, and an underwater sequence recalls both Harry Potter and the epic parachute drop from 2014's Godzilla. We all remember that, do we?
I do.
And obviously the bar scene was directly from Norbit. There are probably people who remember Norbit just as much as people remember 2014's Godzilla. So for all they know, it is actually reminiscent of a scene in that movie. It's not, but you know. For Aquaman to constantly jump from one illusion and register to another could be fun, part of a purposefully disorienting, anything goes aesthetic. But the film itself seems unable to keep up with these constant shifts, resulting in moments so absurd they appear incidental, perhaps even accidental, or some other thing that ends with dental. I don't think anything in Aquaman can be accidental. There's so much fucking CG in that, you can't accidentally make something that animated. It's like, oops, underwater universe. My bad. It's not possible. One such incident sees an octopus banging on some drums before a big battle. Later, a soldier loads water in an Atlantean weapon in the same manner one does a household iron, by pouring it, much like you often do with water and liquids when they are not frozen or in a gaseous state. This is how else are you gonna do it? How else are you gonna load with a water clip? Is that what you wanted? Such flourishes do not add anything to the narrative and are never commented on within the film. Yeah, because they already know things. That's how they live their lives. You don't comment on how you live your life all the time. You don't like turn to your friend and be like, I pour milk in my cereal. Isn't that crazy? Like, it's a normal thing that everybody does all the time. You don't comment on it. If one is willing to disregard the possibility of mere incompetence of the part of the filmmakers, the only explanation behind these moments appearing in a massively budgeted blockbuster must be precisely what I am doing right now, telling people about these funny bits, and making the film sound like the crazy stoner comedy it's sadly innocent. First of all, really hard to smoke weed underwater. That's not gonna happen. Sorry. Second of all, you're like, hey, maybe the reason for these moments are so that people will talk about the movie when they're done seeing it. Yes? I made this movie so no one would tell anyone. That rarely happens. On at least 5 occasions in the film, the scene is interrupted by villains exploding through a wall, and not one of them was the Kool-Aid Man. Curses! There are several trident sword fights. Good. That can't be a bad thing, right? You're just saying things that happen, right? Also, they're trident fights. They're not swords. You can't have a trident sword fight. You have a trident fight or a sword fight. Like, you can't have anal vagina sex. Like, it doesn't work. Dolph Lundgren is present. Roll call, please. As are Nicole Kidman and Willem Dafoe. Aquaman has all the constituent elements of a camp classic, but this glorious potential is distilled over 143 long minutes in the boring non-story of a rather unlikable hero. Listen. Say what you want about this movie, the graphics, the story, any of that, but to call anything Jason Momoa does unlikable is just wrong and dumb. He's just ridiculously likable. I'm sorry. I don't know. I feel like Jason Momoa is like, he's like the next Ryan Gosling. You know what I mean? Where like Ryan Gosling is like it's like every guy's hall pass for a second. You know what I mean? You want to not like him because girls love him, but you're like, but it's Ryan Gosling. I kind of like him though. It's the one where your girlfriend's like, oh, he's cute, and you're like, fuck that guy. But then he's like, oh, Jason Momoa, and you're like, yeah, I kind of like him. Fuck. We can invite him in. It's fine. I'll fuck him too. Let's be honest. Jason Momoa would fuck me. He is large. The war between the ocean and the surface world that Curry's half-brother, Orm, Patrick Wilson, threatens to begin feels rather vague and abstracted, despite tacked-on lines of dialogue trying to remind us of the conflict's significance for Aquaman. As half-Atlantean and half-human, the threat feels little more than an excuse for a series of rushed battles and adventures for our hero. I gotta admit that, like, it's kind of dumb to go, it almost seems like this conflict was made so that we could see large-scale battles in this movie. Yes? Of course. That's literally the entire point of that happening. I mean, it's almost like you put that turkey in the oven at 375 for 2.5 hours so you can eat it. Some of these sequences are dynamic, over-the-top, and entertaining. A great set piece in Sicily feels like an old-school adventure film action scene. But the rest of this very long film, by the way, this is a very long and wordy review, is too tedious and joyless. By the way, this is a very tedious and joyless review. With only just enough absurd and funny, by the way, this is absurd, not funny though, moments to keep us awake. As superhero movies go, Aquaman isn't a disaster, but it's still a disappointment. Thanks, Jewish grandmother of a reviewer. Good lord. And you're lucky your father isn't home. Aquaman. You know that Kevin Feige down the road, he made a bunch of good movies, right? You know that, right? It's not that your movie's bad. It's just have you maybe talked to Kevin? No? Okay, what do I know? That being said, guys, what did you think of Aquaman, and what did you think of this review? Do you agree, disagree? Put it down in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. If it's your first time here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell right next to it so you can get notified every single time we have a new video out. If you want to see us film this live, you can watch on Twitch, and we'll put a link in the description so you can check that out. And until we see you guys next time, geek out and game on.